industry. So I made a move to Houston, Texas, and I said, wow, this is going to be a great city. It's the fourth largest city, and I didn't know anyone. My husband, my late husband, I was buying an area franchise, like mailboxes, etc. It was called at that time, they're UPS stores. And I looked around, I said, wow, look at all these people. This is wonderful. And people said, why are you here? 100,000 people moved out of the town. The oil bust had crashed. I said, opportunity. You know, I thought about the man that went to Africa, a shoe salesman, and he looked around and he said, wow, bad market, nobody wears shoes. And then they said, another shoes man? And he said, wow, the great market, nobody wears shoes. And that's why I looked at it. I thought, you know, there's opportunity. And so I began, and I had the audacity to think big and to dream big. You know, nobody follows a parked car. And so I came into town and said, oh, we're going to be the #1 unit. We're going to be the biggest area in Houston. Now, there were already 60 leaders there from this company and other national sales structures, but I didn't look left, right. I just said, no, we're going to do this. In 2 years, we became a national area. Along the way, I had such a glorious journey. I didn't realize I'd get a free PhD in psychology. Yes, quickly I learned that I now had become 1-800-Delilah. When I had women say, my husband says, you know, I need to spend more time with him and he's not too sure if this business is for me. And I said, okay, this is what we do. All right, tell him to go to the radio station, turn on at this time, and then we'll sing the song, he is the man of my dreams, I love you so much. And if that didn't work, it usually did. But if it didn't work, and I had these husbands trying to stop my leaders from progressing, I would just say, okay, this is the next thing we do. This is how you have to learn. You have to learn to navigate your people to understand what's going on. I said, okay, ship the children out. I want you to ship them out, and then fix his favorite meal. And when he comes home from work, have your best outfit, have the bubble bath going and bottles of champagne, and take care of him for the night. That always worked. 90%, 95%, and next day I said, okay, that's over, time to get back to work. And so I had to learn to navigate. But you know, it was an interesting journey. In those days, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have internet. We really just, we'd have the hardline phones 43 years ago. We didn't have any Facebooks. We had to warm chatter. So when I was there, I worked out every day. I said, you know, I don't know anyone here in Houston, but I'm gonna find them. And every day I'd get up and go out and meet people. I'd go to Starbucks, I'd meet a friend every day, but I'd always have a goal that I'd meet 10 new people. And then it started, and then it started. And the leaders came, and we grew, and we grew. We had a lot of fun stories. You know, on our other company, we had to have quotas. We don't have this, isn't that great? We don't have a monthly quota. We don't have to stock inventory, isn't that great? Well, that's what we had to do. And so we would have deadlines. This is, I mean, we have it so easy here. That's the whole point here. I mean, you have links, send the link, you have a credit card. We didn't have that. And I can remember many times, even when I was in California, when I first started there were times that we had to get all our orders in by 5 o'clock on the last day of the month. And there was a guard at the center. And if you didn't get there, they closed the door and that's it. And then the next month, all your volume was flushed down. Yeah, you never flush your volume here, as long as you're active, right? But I remember getting caught in traffic, you know, going down the side roads. We had to get there. I had other directors coming from Los Angeles trying to get into the branch. And you know, they weren't gonna make it. So I said, do you see any motorcycles around? Well, yeah, there's a motorcycle. Flag him down, pull him over. And so we did. She offered him $100, parked the car, took him, and we got the orders in the branch. Another time, we had another one. Oh my God, she's coming from Beverly Hills. No, we can't make it. And I said, there's gotta be a helicopter somewhere. Yes, yes. All right, pull out over there. She parked the car, jumped in the helicopter, got to the branch, and then realized, oh my gosh, I left the car keys in the car, and his car is still running. So she had to call her husband. But the point is, we made it happen. remember, but going now forward again into Houston, these are stories that we had, but we had a lot of fun. We couldn't take cash, we couldn't take checks, we didn't have credit cards, so we had to get money orders for every order. Now, as my organization was growing, and everybody waited till the end of the month, do you know what they did? I had to send them out to all the 7-Elevens in the middle of the night to transfer, get money orders, get cashier's checks, money orders. I'm sure they must have thought we were laundering money or something. I wasn't too sure. But it was like, we just made it happen. But and of course, they would always bring it to me on the very last day of the month, about 11 o'clock. And we had to fly all the orders into the branch or it was over. This one particular time, I was going like, oh my gosh, they're late. They've been up all night going around getting their money orders, and then they all came in. I says, okay, it's ready. I've got to go to the airport because we got to catch the plane because we're not going to make it. We have to fly into Dallas, and so I finally got them out of the house. I ran down, jumped in my Cadillac, and drove to the Hobby Airport. And I had in this bag now, in this white envelope, unit clubs, recruiting clubs, cars, furs, trips, national qualifications, directors, everything is depending on me. As I drove to the airport with all these orders that they had just brought me, as I parked the car, I reached back in the car, back seat to get the envelope, and it wasn't there. I thought I was gonna die. I went, oh my God. I said, I had to speed. I hope it's a good thing I didn't get a ticket. But I went all the way across town, ran up, and all I could think at the moment in my car, oh my God, I hope I didn't leave the envelope on the top of the car and all the orders are in Katy Freeway. I was just like panicky. But I ran up and there it was, the white envelope. And so it all turned out well. I got back, I had to jump and make a plane reservation, change it, and make it happen. Because if I hadn't, all I could do was see Houston Chronicle, mobster lady suspected of laundering money, hung at AKO Corral. It was like unbelievable. But what a journey of how many lives that we changed in this industry. I remember going, I've seen it all, experienced it all in 43 years. I love the industry. I loved going to Mexico, getting on buses, and the middle of the night, and we missed the Futura bus, and going from Tasco to Cuernavaca to Mexico City. I could go through, just all the incredible cities of all the people so hungry for hope. And we were there. And how many lives we changed. I remember on a bus in the middle of the night, in a white suit, wool, and it's hot because we missed that other bus. And the bus would stop in the middle of the night, and the people would get out into the darkness. I said, where did they go? Well, they live way out in the wilderness. And I remember getting in cars and they'd say, hide your jewelry, there's bandits on the road. I said, okay. So I dressed down, but we made a difference. And we built a huge organization in Mexico, from all over the country. And I just loved that. I became part of their family. I knew all their children. I watched my women have a chance to be successful. And that is why I love this industry. It just grew and grew and grew. And then I moved on to Chicago, did the same thing. I said, I'm gonna move down there purposely. I was going in and I wore out. I found Kimberly Starch, bringing my first national. Then I was working with Antoinette in Dallas and built all these nationals. And then I moved to Atlanta, then I moved to Miami. It was like, we've got a mission. So I was there 27 years. And I loved it. I'm not a jumper. The worst thing I hate in this industry is to see networkers come in, bring a group in, they rank up, and they don't see them in 6 months. And they're gone. That does not do a service to any of us or to your people. I'm not a jumper. So I was there 27 years, had a great life, started making significant 7-figure income, and lived on a very fancy island where Oprah and all these people, I became kind of a star. They're like, you're a networker and you're here? Well, welcome, wow, look at you. It's like I was a showpiece or something, you know? And then of course all the pampered women were there, pampered poodles I called them. They were just, and I was the working woman, you know? And so we had a great time, and I got to go to all the parties, and I was loving life and loving my people and my great directors and nationals, and then they said, it's time for you to retire. And if you just sold product or you're a director, you never had to retire, but at the national level, at 65, they said you have to retire. So they bought my business out, and so I was sitting on that island going, I don't want to retire. Warren Buffett's still working. He says you should still keep working. And I thought, my gosh, he's 94. And as I said, I love the industry. Where else can a person have this chance? So I decided to join a new company. Yeah, I thought, well, it wasn't so much about the money, it was about changing lives, keeping myself young, keeping myself busy. So I joined another company and I started building in Asia. I thought, well, this will be fun. So I started traveling around the world, writing it off, building in South Korea, building in Taiwan, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Canada. And I was there 14 years. Not a jumper. There'll be points in your life, let me be real clear on something. There'll be points that you kind of go like, I don't know. I just don't know if this is for me. Yeah. And you think, oh, I'll go to a different company or I'll go someplace else because it seems like it might be easier. You have to do the same work. You have to prospect, present, enroll, period. That's all we do. We build relationships. That's all you do in this industry. So I started and was loving it, had a great time, but then that company decided, the owners, they weren't young like our fearless leader, Daniel, who's going to be here to 100, they said, well, we want to retire. And so they kind of sold out and shut down the Asian countries. And I said, well, man, I don't know. You know, so, well, it is what it is. Meanwhile, my husband has passed away. And my daughter says, Mom, you don't need to work so hard. You have enough money. And I'm going, no, I don't know, I'm okay. And she said, no, you need to find someone to go out to dinner, you know, have a life. And I said, well, no one would be interested in me. You know, I'm 67 years old, etc. And she said, no, Mom, there's some widowers. And so then she got me a Match.com. Well, now that was an experience because here I was giving all the advice. Delilah, bubble baths, I'm the one, and now suddenly I am going on here. So I went on this Match.com, and of course I'm building a business. And so I'm getting my 10 leads a day. I'm doing all that work, but at 10 o'clock at night I have a different uniform. I'm going hunting. I'm going, you know, in the morning, in the daytime I'm a big game hunter looking for leaders. At night I'm now looking for a man to have dinner and a movie with, okay? And so, of course, I never told my people, a leader never tells her personal story. My people knew nothing of what was going on in my life. And so I started getting on, and I put it on there, and I went to one of the events, and then I came back, and there was these people, these men, and I said, what? And they were young. I said, I'm not a cougar. I mean, I was like, what? You know, you have to be careful when you make a lot of money, because the man will be looking for a purse or a nurse. So you gotta be careful, okay? So I was successful, and so I started looking, and I was like, no, and then I looked at the pictures, and the muscle cars. I thought, oh, I would never be a muscle car girl, and I'm looking around, and this and that, and then all of a sudden, here comes this guy, and he says, he only has 2 pictures, against all of my rules, for sure. Because my rules, I want to see all the pictures. He only had 2 pictures. You know, he's kind of going, he's in a hotel room with his white shirt and his socks on, and he kind of pulls the silver, they join me. You know, and then the other picture is like, hi, he's in Dubai. You know, and I'm going, what? He has a nice smile. It says, hero looking for heroine for a romantic movie. Well, I'm a Pisces, so of course I fell for that right away. And then he said, oh, well, I'm a railroad executive, but I'm looking for a woman that will scream if I gave her a lipstick or a diamond. I thought, well, I like that. He says, I travel extensively, but maybe I would travel less if I could find the right woman, or we could look mischief we could get into. I said, well, that's kind of nice. So I sent a message back, well, you look kind of interesting. And of course, now my people knew nothing about this, but I'm using my networking skills, you see. All my networking skills that I have accrued. So now this individual says, I send back, well, yes, maybe I would like to get together with you. And I didn't hear anything back. And then 24 hours later, he sends a message, oh, I'd love to get together with you over a long bottle of wine, but I'm in Africa. I went, oh my gosh, well, no wonder he'd been, it's a time zone. So he called or sent back, and he says, I said, well, I'm very busy, I'm starting a new business, and et cetera. He says, well, that'd be great. He says, I'm coming back Friday, and he says, I'll give you a day to rest, and then we'll meet together. Why don't you pick out a restaurant down there in South Beach area? I don't know the area too much. Pick out 3 restaurants, and then I'll try. I said, okay. Well, it seemed like he would be a nice guy, because he said he was an executive. I don't know what he really did in the railroad business, but I thought, well, maybe he just did, whatever. And now listen, a clue if you're a single person, you're going Match.com, you always want to have valet service. Because if you're going to meet somebody, if he's a creep, you need to get out fast and not have him follow you. So I pulled up, I checked out the restaurants that had valet parking. So I moved out and I drove up, and there was no valet parking. I said, what? I said, I went right in, I said, oh my gosh, I'm meeting a very important person. There's no valet parking. Well, that's just the weekends. I said, false advertising. You need to kick there. So the manager and the chef came out. He said, you go back to the table, and when he comes, we'll take him. So he never knew when he pulled up that the chef and the owner were doing special valet service for him. So they went and parked his car, and he came in, and I said, he slumbers around, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, it looks nice. And you never know with those pictures, right? You don't know where they're gonna be. So it seemed very nice. We sat and talked, and I said, well, tell me about yourself. I'm using my DISC program, D-I-S-I-C. Who is he? Dominant, influencing, steadiness, etc. So I said, well, tell me about yourself. And then, of course, I did the little touch that I taught my women to do. Just rub his arm, just like so. Well, tell me about you. Tell me all about your life. And he goes, oh. And so I said, well, tell me. He says, well, I grew up in El Paso. And then I went to school, no-name college. And I dropped out, and then I went back. And then I finally finished, and then I was a surveyor. I said, I thought he was a railroad guy, or executive, but oh well. But he's nice enough. And then he says, well, finally he got a promotion. I mean, they were saying, well, we want you to, this is what he's telling me. He said, well, we'd like to have you go on this special program. He says, well, no, I'd rather go back in my master's. And they said, okay, we'll pay for it. I said, really? They would pay for yours? And you dropped out of school several times? I still don't know, really. And he says, well, yeah. And I said, so then he says, well, did you graduate from your master's? And he says, yeah. I said, well, where did you get it? He said, oh, Harvard Business School. I went, oh my God, Harvard Business School, and I'm a saleswoman. Now I really have to put the sales on here. Well, I got to close the deal. ABC, always be closing. And so I'm going, wow, I got to be closing on this deal like real fast, And it's nice. He says, oh yes, I was the CEO of Amtrak, and I went, oh my God, this is really double dipper. And so I'm going, oh my gosh. So here I go. All right. So we have a nice evening, and then he says, well, tell me about you. I said, no, tell me more about you. About you. It's all about them. They just think you're the most wonderful thing if you just talk all about them. They just think you're the most wonderful person in the world. And so at the end he says, well, I think I need to see you again. I said, well, yes, when? Always be closing. ABC, not well, whenever. And he said, well, I was thinking about maybe this weekend. I said, well, no. I'm going to New York. I'm doing business. And he said, oh, well, how about tomorrow night? I said, well, yes. Why don't you come to my island? He says, your island? I said, yes. I will clear you with the guards. You know, you come over to my ferry. I got to close this deal, all right? So he comes across, they bring him over, and he's very nice, and he brings me a little red wine bag, and he's very nice, and he looks better even the second time. You know, I mean, he's getting better, you know, and I was thinking, it's very nice, he's fun, nice, kind person. And he said, oh, by the way, there's 2 envelopes in this little bag. And I said, well, what is it? And he says, well, open the first one, and then add a little one. And it says, I bet you've never seen this. And I said, what is it? And it said, I opened it, it was like 2 monetary notes, $2 trillion from Zimbabwe. Of course, it's worth nothing, you know, but, you know, it's funny, we kind of laughed about it. And then he said, well, by the way, here is another envelope. This would make me really happy. This is our second date. Match.com, good results. All right? He said, I would be very happy, but if it's not good for you now, maybe we could do it some other time. And so I said, well, what could this be? I open it up, it's a first class to Africa. I immediately looked to see if it was first class. There was no way I was flying 16 hours to Africa to a coach. I thought, oh, this is good, this is good. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going. I'm thinking in my head, now my niece is about ready to come down because I lived in South Beach, you know, on the Fisher Island. And then they're always wanting to come visit me in spring break. And I think, well, wait a minute, my daughter can take care of her. They need bonding time. I can go on this trip, you know. All this is going through my head like I've got to make this happen, you know. And so I said, yes. He says, oh, well, great. So he flew off. Well, of course, the next morning, what did I do? I called my daughter, you just won't believe it. You were right. You know, I met this man at Match.com, I'm going to Africa. He says, Mom, he could be a predator. I said, I hope he is. I don't care. I was married to an older man, I didn't have sex for 15 years. I hope he is. So, I'm going like, oh my God. I hope it still works. So now I have to go to my gynecologist, and I'm going like, what do I do? And she says, oh, I'm so happy for you. I met somebody at Match.com too, but he was married and it didn't work out. And here's my email. And you can, and so she gets me all set up. Now all the pampered poodles on my island are living vicariously through my life. What? You know, they're happily married, so I guess. And now suddenly, I met this man, I'm going on a journey. And they're like, oh my gosh. And everybody, so immediately my daughter says, Mom, instead of doing a background check, David says this all the time, he says, why didn't you do a background check? And I said, well, we never thought of that. And my daughter says, Mom, we're going to New York. I know a great psychic. It's Frank Andrews, and he lives right across from the Catholic Church, and he's done Princess Diana, and he's done all these people. He's really, really good. And I said, okay. So we went to New York, and at 10 o'clock in Little Italy on Sunday morning, I went to the psychic. And of course, David now knows that I'm going to this psychic, probably thinks I'm Lou, and he's thinking that his life is being held in this psychic's name. And his hand. So I walked in there and I'm looking around. It's like a really haunted place. Has this table, and it brings his old tarot cards out. They're real big and curved. And I went like, oh my God, $200 for a tarot card reading. Oh, what a waste. So I'm thinking all of this in my head, but I'm doing it because my daughter told me to do it. I'm just following. The roles were reversed. I used to tell her what to do, now she tells me what to do. So, but I'm using all of my skills, my networking skills. You know, I've got to make sure and keeping the contact with David, using my ABC, keep contact, closing always. And so it's a true story. He said, he pushed his tarot cards out to me and he said, put your hands out and divide it in 3 groups and divide them with your left hand and shuffle them and shuffle them again and shuffle them and shuffle them and shuffle them. And I did, and he says, now push him back. And I swear to God, he says, who's David? You're going on a trip. I went, whoa. Wow. I said, can I have a pencil and paper, please? And Mediterranean. And so that was it. We had the verification. My daughter and I sat with the verification of the psychic. So the bottom line is that 3 weeks later, I took off to Africa by myself. And he was in Africa. He tracked me all the way, and he was there. He was very romantic. Of course, I had to get my clothes together, and of course, I was trying to get my daughter. Oh, what do I wear the first night? I'm so nervous. I don't know. You know, she says, "Mom, too much information. Too much information. Just get it." And so I flew over there, and we went to Victoria Falls. We went to Sabi safaris for 3 weeks, and we've been together ever since. So, you never know. Now, here I am, a networker. And I'm saying, you know, I think you'd be really great in this business. He's retired. He's doing consulting. He said, well, I don't know. You know, and I said, yes. So he has really helped me a lot. He does all the analytical stuff. And I'm really on a mission to build this new company. I am so dedicated and so excited about my third adventure I really feel that we'll make all so much more money being at the right time at the right place. I mean, just imagine the whole world is changing, you know, and AI can never replace us. And so it's a body-to-body relationship, really. I mean, I really don't do much on the social media. Let me be real clear about that. There's people everywhere. Every time I go out, I meet people. So I have David now. The only things this is my rule of thumb. If you want to be successful, every time I do something, if this is going to make me money or help my business grow. If it doesn't, I don't do it. It's just, I am absolutely zero focus. So now I've trained David. He now goes and does the grocery shopping, and now that's his job. And now he cooks for me, and he's never cooked before, but he's pretty good. Although there's been two alarm fires in the smoke. It's a good thing I didn't have a Zoom going on at that moment. But we've done well, and we are really both so excited about this career. But I think back of how many lives I've changed in the world and how many more I'm going to change in the world. That's what it's about. It's not really about me. It's really not about the money, although I do like the money, don't get me. No, Daniel, I don't need it. I will collect the checks. I really love this industry because I just can't, David and I talk about it all the time. Can you imagine? When George Ruiz came to my house, thank you, George, the black crows flying around my house. He brought another colleague who, I've been sitting on top of my mountain. Oh, this is another thing, I'm jumping around, I know. But the daughter said, no, you need to move to Aspen, Colorado. You have 2 grandchildren. So I said, okay. So I moved there, bought a home. I was sitting there going like, well, what am I gonna do? You know, we're not doing that other business now. The black crows are flying around, and George calls and says, you need to come. I said, come on up, George. I have 3 guest rooms. Come up. And I said, and companies were calling me, still call me today. Join our company. We'll do this deal. We'll do this. And I said, I don't do that. You know, I'm okay. I'm not interested. I said, the only reason I'd ever join another company, this would be my 3rd company, would be it'd be a new company, number 1. That's where opportunity is made. But it has to be well-funded. You must have great vision and great leadership. And when I talked to Daniel, I knew he was the man. He was the man, okay? And then I heard about Kim. I said, whoa, #1 earner in the world. I still want to grow up. When I grow up, I want to be like Kim. I mean, I call her Miss Indiana Jones going through the jungle. She was telling me she's going to the jungle. I thought, the snakes? I'm really a 4,000th thread count hotel person. I don't think I want to be in the snakes in the jungle. But I'm so honored to work with Samson and Kim. She teaches me so much. I'm always learning. But when George introduced that to me, and the second thing I said, I would only want to be in the supplement industry. Why? Because the supplement industry was $60 billion in 2020. This year it's over $500 $500 billion, and as Daniel says, is going to $1 trillion. That's the kind of business I want to be in. I don't want to be in the handbag or jewelry business. They buy one time. I want something, they get emotional. They try it. They put it in their body and say, wow, this really works, and they order every month. That's the kind of business I want. And then the compensation. When I looked at this compensation, I went, wow, I was in an old stair-step breakaway. Had to build leaders, break away, I lost money, break away, lose money. I said, you mean they all stay in the tree? I get paid in all the volume? I get matching checks by helping leaders that don't leave? Hallelujah! I mean, this is the best comp plan, best timing, and now we have this wonderful product. Wow! Who's going to make, as Carmen would say, who's going to become rich?
Yes.
Yeah! We can all become rich. You can pick up a guy, girls, by the way, just become successful. Maybe you, maybe not, I don't know. That's how you get them in the man, and the white horse is not arriving. Oh, usually the Honda arrives. So you want to become very successful in 3, and you've got the vehicle to do it. And I love all of you, and I wish all of you great success. And I know we are going to go to not 300 million, we're going to $1 billion. And lastly, you know, my mother always said I was a late bloomer, and I guess 82 years old is a late bloomer. You know, so I'm just getting going, and I'm going to be like Dr. Yan. He's making these products for me to live to 100. So I'll see you at the top.